I let my abused best friend stay in our guest room, then she wore my clothes, flirted with my husband, and kissed him while I was out of town. Cassandra and I have been best friends since college, like, really close. The kind of friendship where you know each other's darkest secrets and have been through every major life event side by side. She stood by me as my maid of honor when I got married 3 years ago, and I was always supposed to return the favor whenever she finally met the right guy. But after what she did, that's never going to happen now. The truth is, Cassandra has always had terrible luck with men, and I mean really bad. She somehow always ends up with the worst types, the toxic, selfish, emotionally unavailable ones. And then she acts completely shocked when they treat her like garbage. I've seen it all. I've been the one opening my front door at midnight to find her crying over some jerk who cheated, ghosted her, or made her feel worthless. And every time, I let her in, because that's what friends do. You show up for each other, no questions asked. All you expect in return is loyalty and trust. About 6 months ago, she started seeing this new guy named Lucas. Right off the bat, I had a weird feeling about him. There was just something unsettling, controlling, possessive, like he didn't want her spending time with anyone else, not even me. I tried to gently raise concerns, but she was already deep in it. Thought he was just protective and romantic. Huge red flag, but Cassandra's always been kind of blind when it comes to figuring out who a guy really is underneath the charm. Things went downhill fast. She started bailing on our plans more and more, always with an excuse about how Lucas didn't want her going out, or how they had something special planned. Our texts slowed down, and when we did talk, she wasn't the same. She seemed nervous, jumpy, like she was constantly walking on eggshells. I started to worry that something serious was going on. I brought it up a few times, tried to get her to open up, but she kept insisting everything was fine. Said Lucas was just under a lot of pressure at work and maybe being a bit clingy because of that. I didn't believe it for a second, but I held back from pushing too hard. I figured if things really went south, she'd need someone she could turn to. I wanted to make sure I'd still be that person. Then, about 2 weeks ago, I got a call from her around midnight. She was sobbing so hard I could barely understand a word, but it was clear something terrible had happened. From the little she managed to say, I gathered Lucas had hit her for the first time and she was terrified. She didn't know where else to go. Said he knew where all her other friends lived, and she didn't want to risk their safety. But she thought maybe she could come to me since Lucas didn't know where I lived. Of course I told her to get over here right away. My husband Carl was on board too, totally supportive even though it meant we had no idea how long she'd be staying. He's always been great about my friendships, and while he and Cassandra never had much in common, he's never once complained when I've helped her through all her past relationship disasters. When she showed up that night, she looked wrecked like she hadn't slept in days. She had a bruise on her arm she tried to cover up, but I saw it. And it just broke me. No one deserves to be treated like that, no matter the circumstances. I was so furious at Lucas I wanted to call the cops on the spot. But Cassandra begged me not to. Said getting the authorities involved would only make things worse, that Lucas had connections and could ruin her life if she pressed charges. I didn't agree with her decision, but I respected it. It was her life. My job was to give her a safe place to land and figure things out on her own terms. The first few days went surprisingly well. She started eating again, sleeping more, and even mentioned looking into getting her own apartment somewhere far from Lucas. Carl and I both encouraged her to take her time, not rush anything, and to focus on feeling safe and whole again before making any big decisions. But then, things started to feel a little off. I couldn't put my finger on it right away, it was subtle at first. Little things. She started borrowing my clothes without asking. When I mentioned it, she just laughed and said she assumed I wouldn't care since we used to share everything in college. And yeah, back then we did swap outfits all the time, but we were broke roommates then. Now we're adults with our own spaces, our own wardrobes, and different boundaries. Still, I let it go. I figured she was just in survival mode and once she got back on her feet, things would shift back to normal. But then I started noticing how much time she was spending with Carl. And I don't just mean casual chatting over dinner. I mean seeking him out when I wasn't home. Making sure she was in the same room with him, even when she didn't need to be. At first, I brushed it off as loneliness. After being isolated by Lucas for so long, maybe she just craved connection. But it started to make me uncomfortable. Carl works from home, and Cassandra had to quit her job because Lucas had been causing problems there, showing up, making scenes. So while I was at my 9 to 5, the two of them were home together, every day. When I got home, I'd hear these little stories. Carl helped me fix the Wi-Fi, or we watched a movie together, or we made lunch and talked for a bit. Nothing alarming on its own, but the frequency of it? It bothered me. I brought it up to Carl and asked if he thought Cassandra was being a little too familiar. He just laughed, told me I was probably overthinking it. Said she was probably just grateful and trying to be friendly. Maybe I was stressed, he said, from having someone else in the house for so long. And part of me wanted to believe he was right. I didn't want to be the kind of person who gets jealous or territorial, especially when my friend was in such a fragile place. But something in my gut said this wasn't just in my head. And I've learned to trust that instinct. It's rarely wrong. The clothes thing didn't stop either. In fact, it got worse. She started wearing my nicer stuff, my more expensive pieces, and even my jewelry. Without asking. When I finally called her out on it. When I called her out about the clothes, Cassandra got defensive fast. She snapped that she didn't think I'd be so materialistic or territorial over things that don't really matter. The way she said it made me feel like I was the one in the wrong, like I was being petty and selfish just for caring about my own stuff. And that stung, especially considering I'd opened my home to her, no rent, no strings, just trying to help. Then something happened last week that really pushed me over the edge. I came home early from work with a headache, just wanted to lie down. When I walked into the kitchen, I saw Cassandra standing there, making dinner, wearing one of my favorite dresses. The same dress I had specifically set aside to wear to a dinner party that weekend. She looked surprised to see me and quickly said she'd spilled something on her shirt and had to change, said she hoped I wouldn't mind that she grabbed one of mine. But here's what really bothered me, the dress didn't fit her at all. She's smaller than me, and it was practically falling off her. It wasn't about comfort or convenience, it felt deliberate, like she picked that dress because it was mine, not because it suited her. Like she was trying to make a statement, and whatever that message was, I didn't like it. I told her honestly that yeah, I did mind, and that she needed to ask before taking my clothes. She gave me this wounded look and said she thought we were close enough that it wouldn't be an issue. Then came the tears. She started crying and apologizing, saying it felt so good to wear nice things again after Lucas had micromanaged every aspect of her life, including what she could wear. And while I felt bad for making her cry, I also felt manipulated. That's when I really started watching how she behaved around Carl. And what I saw, it wasn't innocent. She was absolutely flirting with him, touching his arm while they talked, laughing at every single joke he made, even the dumb ones. She was always finding reasons to be near him. She started putting on makeup and styling her hair every single day, even though she had nowhere to go. And more often than not, she'd wear my clothes when she knew Carl would be around. I brought it up to Carl again, but this time I was blunt. I laid it out, exactly what I'd been noticing. He admitted Cassandra had been a bit more physical lately. But he brushed it off, said she was probably just being friendly and maybe seeking attention after everything she'd been through with Lucas. He promised he'd keep a closer eye on boundaries and try not to spend so much time alone with her when I wasn't home. That helped, a little, but the worry didn't go away. Then came the weekend trip. I had to go out of town overnight for a quick work meeting with some clients. I almost canceled because I didn't feel right leaving Carl and Cassandra alone for that long. But Carl told me I was being ridiculous. Even Cassandra chimed in and said she could stay at a friend's house if I was uncomfortable. That offer made me feel guilty, like I was being paranoid for no reason, so I decided to go ahead with the trip. Carl had been completely drained from a big project, barely keeping his eyes open by the end of each day. He was so tired, I honestly didn't think he'd have the energy to even hold a conversation, let alone do anything inappropriate. I got home early the next morning. Carl was still passed out in bed, he'd worked until around 3 a.m. and Cassandra was in the kitchen, acting totally normal. Too normal. Smiling, making breakfast, asking about my trip, offering to make me coffee. She was being extra sweet, and it just felt fake. Like she was trying too hard to seem relaxed. Carl eventually woke up around noon. He looked exhausted but said the project was finally done and he was just relieved to have it behind him. We all had lunch together, and things seemed okay. Normal enough that I started to second-guess myself. Maybe I had been imagining it all. But then I remembered something. We had security cameras installed in the common areas a few months back after a string of break-ins in the neighborhood. Carl had put them in mostly for peace of mind. We hardly ever checked the footage unless something weird happened. Still, something in my gut told me to look. I waited until Carl stepped out to run errands and Cassandra was in the shower. I pulled up the camera app on my phone and started watching the footage from the night I'd been away. Most of it was harmless, Carl typing on his laptop, Cassandra watching TV, both of them eating dinner. Totally routine. But then I reached the part around 1 a.m. Carl had passed out on the couch with his laptop still in his lap, completely out cold. You could tell he wasn't faking anything. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. That's when Cassandra walked into the room. She was wearing one of my silk nightgowns, not her own pajamas, mine. And not just any nightgown, one that I kept for special occasions. She stood there in the doorway just staring at Carl for a few minutes. Then she quietly moved his laptop off his lap and set it on the coffee table. After that, she sat down right next to him. Like, right next to him. My heart was racing watching this. Carl was clearly unconscious, had no idea she was even there. And Cassandra? She started stroking his hair, running her fingers down the side of his face. He didn't flinch. He didn't move. He was totally out of it. Then she leaned in and kissed him, while he was completely asleep. And then, she kissed him again. I sat there on the couch, staring at my phone, feeling like I was going to throw up. The worst part? She knew what she was doing. She kept glancing around to make sure no one could see her. She was moving slowly, carefully, being quiet so she wouldn't wake him. She wasn't confused. She wasn't overwhelmed by emotion. She planned this. It wasn't some desperate, impulsive moment. This was a calculated invasion of boundaries. A violation of trust. Of Carl. Of me. After the second kiss, she just sat there for a while, watching him sleep, brushing her fingers over his skin like some kind of sick fantasy was playing out in her head. Eventually, she got up and went back to the guest room. Carl didn't move. He never stirred. He didn't see it. He didn't know what happened. And I just sat there, staring at that video, for at least 20 minutes, completely numb, trying to make sense of what I had just seen. I just sat there staring at the footage on my phone, trying to wrap my head around what I had seen and figure out what the hell I was supposed to do with it. My thoughts kept circling back to Cassandra. This was someone I'd called my best friend for years, someone I believed was recovering from trauma after dealing with an abusive relationship. Yet here she was, crossing every boundary, using my kindness, my home, and my husband's vulnerable state to act out some twisted fantasy I still couldn't understand. When Carl got back from running errands, I didn't say a word. I just handed him my phone and hit play. I wanted to see his honest reaction, unfiltered, to know for sure that what I saw would horrify him too. He watched it twice. Both times, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. His face went pale, and he kept repeating how sorry he was and that he had no clue any of it had happened. He looked sick just knowing it occurred while he was completely out cold. That reaction told me everything I needed. He hadn't been part of it. He hadn't known. And that, at least, was a huge relief, because I didn't even want to imagine what I'd do if he had been conscious and allowed it. Still, I was furious. Furious that this even happened under our roof. Furious that someone I trusted like family could violate us like this. We agreed to confront Cassandra together. So when she walked out of the bathroom, Carl and I were sitting there on the couch with serious looks on our faces. She froze instantly. She knew something was up. Carl held out his phone and played the footage. Watching her face was like watching a storm roll in. Shock, panic, denial, fake innocence all flashing across her expression in seconds. She tried to lie at first. Claimed the camera angle must have been misleading, that she was just making sure Carl was okay, maybe adjusting a blanket or something. Absolute crap. The footage was crystal clear. You could see her kiss him. Twice. When that didn't work, she switched gears and said maybe she'd been sleepwalking and didn't remember doing it. Another obvious lie. Finally, when it was clear neither of us was buying any of her garbage, she broke down crying. Said she didn't know what came over her. That she was lonely, lost, and confused after everything with Lucas. She insisted she didn't mean to hurt anyone. Claimed she was just so thankful for our help that she got her feelings all twisted. But I wasn't falling for it. There was nothing spontaneous or emotional about what I saw. It was intentional. She had put on my nightgown for that moment. She was careful, calculating, making sure Carl didn't wake up. She knew what she was doing. And she knew it was wrong. I told her flat out that she needed to leave. That I couldn't have someone in my home who would violate my husband like that, who would take advantage of someone while they were unconscious. She started begging, saying she had nowhere else to go, that Lucas might find her. But I was done feeling sorry for her. I was done protecting someone who clearly had no respect for me, my marriage, or even basic decency. Carl stood beside me the whole time. He told her point blank that he felt violated and unsafe with her around. That while he sympathized with what she'd been through, that didn't give her permission to cross such a serious line. He said she had to go immediately. So she packed her things while crying and saying she was sorry, still trying to hug us goodbye, like we'd all just had some tough misunderstanding. But we weren't interested in hugs. We just wanted her gone. Before she left, she said she'd reach out when she got settled somewhere and hoped we could work things out. Hoped we could still be friends. I told her straight, that wasn't going to happen. She destroyed that friendship the moment she chose to betray it. After she left, Carl and I talked for hours. About what had happened. How we felt. I kept flipping between grief and rage. I'd lost my best friend in the most messed up way imaginable. And what she did. It disgusted me. Carl kept apologizing even though none of this was his fault. He said he wished he'd been more aware, set firmer boundaries earlier, seen the signs. I couldn't blame him, but I understood the guilt. I had it too. I was angry with myself for brushing off all those gut feelings, for making excuses for her, for not speaking up sooner when I saw her getting too close. I'd let sympathy cloud my better judgment. And now here we were. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just lay there, questioning everything. Did I do the right thing by kicking her out? Should I have handled it differently? Was there another way? But every time those doubts crept in, I thought about that video, about her wearing my nightgown, sitting beside my sleeping husband, kissing him while he was unconscious. In my house. After I took her in. That memory brought everything back into focus. I knew I made the right call. Carl has been incredible through all of this. He never once made me feel paranoid or dramatic for being suspicious. Even before he saw the footage, he listened. Afterward, he was furious on my behalf. He's been understanding and supportive, exactly what I needed. I guess writing this all out is my way of processing it, trying to figure out how the hell I move forward from here. I keep second-guessing myself, wondering if I overreacted. But then I remind myself, protecting my home, my marriage, and my peace was not an overreaction. Update 1: It's been 3 days since I kicked Cassandra out, and some things have happened that I honestly didn't expect. I figured I'd post an update because I'm still trying to make sense of everything. I've been reading through all the comments and messages people sent. Thank you to everyone who took the time to reach out and share their thoughts, it's helped more than I can say. A lot of people have asked what happened to Cassandra after she left, and whether she was really in danger from Lucas or just using that as part of her manipulation. The truth is, I'm not entirely sure. She hasn't contacted me directly since that night. But she has been texting and calling Carl. Which only adds to my anger. She should be leaving both of us alone. Instead, she's bombarding Carl with messages, apologies, pleas for forgiveness, saying she understands why we're upset but begging for a second chance. She claims she's staying in some cheap motel and says it's not safe, that she's afraid Lucas will find her, and she doesn't know what to do without our support. And here's where things start getting weird. Yesterday, while I was at work, I got a call from our neighbor across the street. She's lived in this neighborhood for over 30 years. Our neighbor across the street has lived here for over 30 years, so she knows just about everything that goes on in the neighborhood. She called me yesterday at work with something strange to share. She said there'd been a man parked outside our house the day before in a dark sedan. According to her, he sat there for hours, watching the house and taking pictures. She almost called the police because it seemed sketchy, but he drove off eventually, so she let it go. She said he was tall, dark-haired, looked to be in his 30s. That could definitely line up with what Cassandra told me about Lucas, but honestly, it could have been anyone. Maybe I'm just jumpy after everything that's happened. I told Carl about it when I got home, and he immediately said we should add more security cameras and probably get our locks changed, just to be safe. And honestly, it's not a bad idea even if that guy had nothing to do with Lucas. But it did make me pause and wonder, what if Cassandra was telling the truth about him being dangerous? What if kicking her out actually put us in some kind of danger too? Then, this morning, I got a text from Cassandra's sister Erica. I've met her a couple of times over the years, but we're not close. She said Cassandra had called her crying, telling some vague story about how Carl and I kicked her out over a misunderstanding, and now she had nowhere to go. Erica said Cassandra didn't really explain what happened but sounded scared and upset. Erica wanted me to call her so she could better understand the situation and maybe help find a solution, one that kept Cassandra safe while still respecting our boundaries. I haven't called her back yet. I'm torn. She's basically a stranger, and if Cassandra already got in her head with lies, there's a good chance she wouldn't believe me. Still, I'm worried Cassandra is out there spinning this whole situation to make herself look like the victim, telling people Carl and I were cold-hearted, that we abandoned her during a crisis. I don't care what strangers think about me. But we do share mutual friends, and I really don't want her poisoning them with lies about us. Carl thinks I should just be upfront with Erica. Lay it all out, even show her the footage if that's what it takes. He says people need to know who they're letting into their lives and homes before she pulls the same thing on someone else. And he might be right. I'm hesitant to get even more wrapped up in the drama, but I also don't want to stand by while she manipulates others like she did us. What's really messing with me, though, is the emotional part. I keep thinking about all the years of friendship, laughing at dumb movies, talking about life late into the night, comforting each other through breakups. Was any of that real? Or has she always been like this and I was just blind to it? I've been going through old texts and pictures, trying to spot the red flags. But everything seemed so normal back then. So sincere. Maybe something in her changed after Lucas. Trauma can seriously warp someone. Or maybe this has always been who she was, and I just never had a reason to see it until now. Either way, it doesn't excuse what she did, but I guess it might help me understand how someone I trusted completely could betray me that deeply. Carl and I have had a lot of conversations lately about trust, about boundaries, and about how to protect ourselves from people who take advantage of kindness. We're both naturally the type who want to help people when they're struggling. But this whole situation has made it painfully clear we need to be more careful about who we let into our space, our lives. Honestly, the security cameras are the only reason I was able to prove what Cassandra did and protect Carl from potential accusations. If she had twisted the story and claimed he made a move, it would have been her word against ours. Who knows how much damage she could have done? For now, we're just focusing on moving forward, rebuilding the sense of safety and peace in our home. Carl and I are planning a short vacation next month, just the two of us. I think we need it. After everything, we need time to reconnect, get away from the drama, and just breathe. Update 2. So it's been 2 weeks since that last update, and I honestly thought things were settling down, but this just keeps getting weirder. I keep hoping I'm done with Cassandra and everything tied to her. But it's like every time I think I've reached the end of this story, something else pulls me right back into the mess. Remember how I said Erica had texted me, wanting to talk? Well, after discussing it more with Carl, I decided to call her back. We figured it was better to tell the truth than to stay quiet and let Cassandra keep twisting the narrative to suit her. Erica sounded genuinely shocked when I explained what had really happened. She asked if I'd be willing to share the footage. I was hesitant, honestly. It felt gross to show that to someone else. But Carl reminded me that Erica needed to understand the seriousness of it all, especially if she was going to keep trying to help her sister. So I sent her the video. She watched it and went completely silent for a long time. Then she started asking more questions, wanted to know about Cassandra's behavior before that night. I told her everything. The clothes. The flirting. The way she'd manipulate situations to be alone with Carl. Erica let out this long sigh and said, "I wish I could say I'm surprised." That's when she told me something I wasn't expecting. Apparently, this isn't the first time Cassandra has done something like this. Erica said there had been at least 2 other situations where Cassandra got involved with men who were either married or in serious relationships. One of them was their cousin's husband. Cassandra had an actual affair with him, and it ended the marriage. The other situation, Erica didn't go into detail about, but it sounded like more of the same. She said she'd really hoped Cassandra had grown out of that pattern. That maybe the stuff with Lucas had been a wake-up call. She also apologized for not warning us earlier. Turns out, she didn't even know Cassandra had been staying with us until after everything blew up. She said she felt awful we got caught in the middle of this, and honestly, I appreciated her honesty. But then she told me something that's still messing with my head. She admitted she had some doubts about Cassandra's version of the story with Lucas. Erica told me she had some serious doubts about whether the abuse Cassandra claimed to have gone through was really as extreme as she made it sound. She wasn't saying outright that Lucas wasn't abusive or that Cassandra somehow deserved what happened, but she mentioned that Cassandra had a long history of exaggerating, even fabricating dramatic stories to get attention or sympathy. Especially when she wanted something. I asked her straight out if she thought the bruise I saw on Cassandra's arm that night was real. Erica didn't even hesitate. She said Cassandra was definitely capable of hurting herself if it helped her sell a story. That hit me like a punch to the gut. The idea that someone could fake being a domestic violence victim just to get people to feel sorry for them? That's beyond messed up. But after everything else Cassandra had done, it didn't sound impossible anymore. When I told Carl what Erica said, he was furious. He felt completely used, like Cassandra had taken advantage of his instinct to protect women in danger, twisted it, and used it to get inside our home and close to him. He said the whole thing made him feel sick, like we'd been played by someone using trauma as a weapon to get what she wanted. I was still trying to emotionally untangle all of that when something happened yesterday that took things from upsetting to downright scary. I got home from work around 6 p.m., and as I was pulling into our driveway, I spotted that same dark sedan my neighbor had mentioned parked just a little ways down the street. There was someone sitting inside, in the driver's seat, and even though I couldn't see them clearly, the whole thing gave me a bad feeling. I didn't get out of the car. Instead, I called Carl right away and told him what I was looking at. He told me to stay inside, keep the doors locked, and he'd check from the window to see if he could get a better look at the car and maybe catch part of the license plate. While we were still on the phone, the car suddenly pulled away fast, like the person inside realized they'd been spotted and didn't want to stick around. Carl caught part of the plate, but not enough to really be useful. Still, we figured we needed to report it, just in case. We called the police to file a report about suspicious activity. The officer who came was polite but didn't seem too concerned. He said it wasn't illegal to sit in a car on a public street unless something threatening happened, but they'd increase patrols in the area for the next few days. After he left, Carl and I started talking about whether this really could be Lucas. If it was, then maybe Cassandra wasn't lying about everything after all. But if it wasn't him, then who was it? Either way, it felt like something we needed to take seriously. I ended up texting Cassandra. I didn't want to talk to her, but I felt like I had no choice. We needed to know if she'd given Lucas our address, or if there was any chance he might know where we live. She responded almost immediately. Swore up and down that she never gave him our address. Said she'd been extremely careful the night she came to us, made sure he didn't follow her. She claimed she was staying at a different motel now, far from our neighborhood, and that she hadn't come near our street since we kicked her out. She said if someone was watching our house, it wasn't her fault and had nothing to do with her situation. But then she added something that made my blood boil. She wrote that she'd been thinking a lot about our friendship, how much it meant to her, and that she really hoped we could move past what happened. She said she missed us and was sure we were good people who would eventually understand if she just had a chance to explain everything better. Even after everything, she was still trying to spin this into some emotional misunderstanding. Still trying to manipulate. Like what she did wasn't that serious. Like I was the unreasonable one for being upset. I showed Carl the messages. He didn't hesitate, he said we needed to block her. Completely. No more texts, no more openings for her to worm her way back into our lives. And he was right. We needed to draw a hard line. So we blocked her. And honestly, I felt a weight lift after we did it. I didn't realize how much tension I was holding on to just from knowing she could reach us whenever she wanted. That said, I'm still nervous about the car. About whether we're actually safe. There's a piece of this whole puzzle that still doesn't make sense, and it's eating at me. Carl suggested we go ahead and install more security cameras and maybe even get a home alarm system. And yeah, it sucks that we have to do that. It's not fair that we have to spend money and change how we live because of her mess. But he's right. We need to protect ourselves. What really gets to me, though, is how little I apparently knew about Cassandra. After years of friendship, I thought I had her figured out. Turns out, I didn't know her at all. And that realization is tough. Because now I'm questioning myself, my ability to judge people, to read situations. If I was that wrong about someone I trusted so deeply, how do I trust my instincts again? How do I know who's safe and who's hiding something? Lately, I've been having trouble sleeping. Every little creak or thump makes me think someone's trying to break in. That whoever was in that car might come back or worse, do something. Carl's been amazing, he checks the locks, walks the house with me, makes sure I feel secure. I'm so grateful for him. I don't think I'll be posting any more updates after this unless something major happens. As far as I'm concerned, it's done. The damage is real, but now we're just trying to move on, heal, and rebuild the peace we lost.